Wherever I go, I find somewhere to be alone that's beautiful. This is Logan City. This is supposed to be one of the most, dangerous cities with the most crime and drug problems and all these issues. Woodridge is a couple of suburbs over. It's supposed to be the worst suburb in this city. It's like Gotham, man. It's like where Batman lives. It's supposed to be like really dark and dangerous. But this is what I find, and this is where I spend my time when I'm at home. And my point is that it's always available. Like, you can always find a place that's beautiful and quiet and out of the way and kind of make it your own and become familiar with it. This is how I'm going to remember Logan. This is where I've spent a lot of time contemplating and reflecting and dreaming, turning those dreams into plans, those plans into steps, into, realities at the end of the day. I'm leaving Logan soon, one way or another. My time here is up. But I've just been reflecting on the fact that, one, I find a beautiful place wherever I go, and two, you kind of create a beautiful place wherever you go. I think you can fall in love with anything, anywhere, anyone. Like, you look for the beauty, you look for the peace, you look for what you want to experience, and you kind of highlight that. It's like, it's similar to reading a book with a highlighter, and you're highlighting the bits that are meaningful to you. You kind of do that with your community. Like, if you find surfing really fulfilling, like, you make that a big part of your life. If you find stillness and nature really rewarding, you come to a place like this and you make this a big part of your life. You spend more time in the parts of your community that feel good to you, and you make that familiar, you make that your home. And as simple as that sounds, I think sometimes we forget that we are even capable of doing that. Like, maybe if you do live in a place that's known, like if you live in a city that's supposed to be one of the hardest cities or whatever, or you live in a place where there's no opportunity, or whatever the story is about where you are, and you've really subscribed to that story about your neighborhood, your community, and you've just kind of accepted it, and you're not looking at the rest of the story, you're just consuming that, you can really forget that you can create anything that you want. And I'm sure that there are places in the world where you're so saturated with negativity and, like, this is beautiful, like, this might not quite be available to you, but I think it's all relative. Like, I've been to places where, everything's beautiful everywhere that I look. Like, you couldn't have a bad day. But people there still find a way to be miserable, Or I've been to places where everything's just dark alleys and danger, and you couldn't imagine somebody feeling safe, and there's people thriving there, You kind of adapt. But this thing about familiarity, even like everything that I've said about like creating, I think familiarity itself is a powerful force. Like, just making something familiar, even if you didn't do any of the things that I said, if you didn't look for the positive, you didn't look for the beautiful place, you didn't highlight the parts of your community that are meaningful to you, even if you just sat with the darkness or the discomfort of an experience or a community or a place, and it became familiar to you, even just familiarity by itself can make something beautiful. Like, I think you need to understand that, like, understand that just becoming familiar with something can make it more comfortable, can make it more inviting, can make it more beautiful to be like a support worker, which is what I do primarily for my income. Because, like, you're going to be spending time with a lot of people that have got challenges. That's why you're there. You're there to support them, because they need to change a behavior, or they need to learn some skills, or they might need support for the rest of their life. It might not be a situation where it can be changed. Like some disabilities, you're just going to need somebody to help you with your day-to-day activities forever. But if that becomes familiar to you, if that becomes your day-to-day, this thing that I'm talking about automatically happens. You start to highlight the meaningful things, like when the person smiles, when the person laughs, when the person feels limitless for a moment. They forget about their limitations, or they don't have limitations in a particular aspect of their life. And if you can identify those moments and really be present and observe, like when a person feels limitless, even though I'm speaking as a support worker, but we all have people in our lives that feel limited, and they have moments where that limitation just disappears, and they light up and they look like they can do anything, and their depression and their anxiety or whatever it is goes away. If we can identify those moments and we can highlight those, just like I was talking about highlighting the things in our community that we want more of, and we can assist somebody else to highlight those things in their own lives, and they can spend more time in those moments and less time in the moments of suffering and the moments of feeling limited and like trapped. It's just a totally different kind of existence. And I think when I do these video diaries, I'm just expressing what I'm thinking and feeling in the present moment. It's never intended to be advice or guidance. And sometimes I get like kind of attached to something really simple, and I just dance around it. And today it's familiarity. Becoming familiar is a powerful and simple thing. And I remember actually several years ago, it was like 2014, we were in China. I was filming a documentary that was supposed to be like, my big break, and I was going to do all these things. All that aside, there was an old Chinese man that we interviewed, and he spoke in like Cantonese or Mandarin or something, so we had no idea what he was saying on the footage. But the question essentially was, why have you spent your whole life living in this tiny village? There's like 200 people here. Don't you want to see the rest of the world? And he's answering this question, and he's tearing up and he's fully crying. He's getting so emotional in his response, and it took until after the interview for us to get it translated so that we knew what he was actually saying. This village was in Hunan, where they filmed the original Avatar, James Cameron's like famous movie. It's like beautiful landscapes and stuff, like not what I imagine China. These people said, we're going to China. I'm picturing like this smoky hellscape city that just stinks, and it's like pollution everywhere. And then they drive us out into the country, and there's not a building in sight. It's like concrete or mud huts, and like just this totally different picture. But yeah, this man's been living in this little village for his entire life, and he's crying, saying, when we ask him like, why hasn't he had the urge to travel the world? And it turns out all he was saying is like, this is the place that's familiar to me. This is what I know. This is what I've grown to like love. Like when like every rock, where every drop of water in the stream, like it was like this really poetic thing, like that was even difficult for our translator to translate. But he was in it, and he was just saying like, I know this place. And that's what makes it so beautiful, and that's what makes me feel so emotional, and I never want to leave it, because it feels like home. It's like the deepest sense of home that a human being could ever experience, and he articulated that in his own language. And that's kind of thing stays with you, especially when the profound moment where you can't understand what he's saying, but you can feel what he's saying when you're looking at the footage. Or you're looking through the camera, and yeah, you can feel like there's this deep sense of like meaning and magic in this place and in like what he's saying. And then so you're like hanging out to find out like what is he actually saying. And that's what it was. It was just, I know this place essentially, but he really knew this place. And I think we all have access to that kind of experience. Like whatever it is that you're going through, no matter how dark it gets, like that's your life. You know your life. You know the people in your life. You know how it all works. And I think sometimes familiarity is so powerful that it can hold us back. Of course. That's usually what I would talk about. But today I want to look at it from another angle. Like familiarity can hold you back because you get so comfortable in what you know that you don't want to go and explore beyond. You don't want to try something new. You don't want to go to a new city. You don't want to date a different kind of person. You don't want to apply for a job that you feel is beyond your current skills and qualifications. You don't want to push yourself with your career. Like all these things, like familiarity is usually, when I'm talking about it, it's like the shackles that are keeping you stuck. But it also has this magical quality of making anything that you're experiencing beautiful. And like familiarity is like love. Like it's when you know something, it's special. I don't know how to articulate it any more clearly than that. But if you can appreciate what I'm saying and make it something that's more conscious, like this automatically happens. You have things in your life that are familiar to you, and that's the only reason that you love them. And it's funny when other people come into your reality or come into your life and they see the things that you love, and sometimes it seems absurd to other people. Like some of the things that I love just might not make any sense to others, and vice versa, because familiarity is like the only reason that it's special. It's just because I know it and it's what I've always done, or I know it and it's always been part of my life. So many examples. You're probably thinking of your own right now. Probably thinking of things that are just special to you just because they are. And realizing that this is kind of what's taken place. You've just made it a part of your life for so long that you can't imagine your life without it. That's what's beautiful. And like, you know, as I was walking down here, I was just thinking like, the whole world's kind of like that to me now. Like I've become familiar with planet Earth. I've become familiar with humans. I've become familiar with like eating and drinking, and even the less glamorous parts of being a human. It's just all like this experience. I'm familiar with it now. And I think that's part of the wisdom that comes with age that you never understand when you're younger. When older people are just kind of content, and they're just like, even if they've got like a huge beer gut and they've got back problems and their ankles hurt and their wife's grumpy and like all the things are just like, you know, not ideal, but they're stoked. They're just like, this'll do. They got their feet up on the couch. They're watching TV for 3 hours straight. And you're like, how are you happier than I am as a young man with like all this energy, all this possibility, and like no responsibility compared to you? And you know, like the thing is, like, they've just been human longer than you, and they've got used to it, and they're just kind of like, they're in it, and they're just like, I know how this thing goes, you know, there's nothing left to worry about, there's nothing left to stress about. Like, I've been doing this long enough, and it's familiar enough to me. I know what I like, I know what I enjoy, I know what I want, and I know the consequences. I know, like, if I drink more beers, I'll get overweight. Like, if I eat more sugar, then I'll have less energy. Like, or even maybe I don't know the consequences and I don't care. I'm just happy. And this is just how I live, and this is what I've decided, and I'm cool with it because it's familiar to me. Like that kind of contentment. But that's always scared me as well. Like, again, this is such a strange video diary for me because I'm almost being the opposite person to what I would normally be. Normally I'd be like, stay away from familiarity, go into the unknown, stay away from contentment and like just accepting your beer gut and your back pain and your sore ankles and your bad relationships. Like, do something about it. But today, I don't know what's come over me. I'm appreciating contentment and familiarity and just reflecting on the power of it. Like, you could just be wherever you're at and love it And that is actually a transformative act. You can make people's lives better, you can make your own life better, you can make your community better just by highlighting the things that you actually enjoy about being here. If you get anything out of these videos, or anything's emerging within you while you're listening to me express my thoughts and feelings, please leave your comments down below. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Click the like button for me if you ever find these videos to be valuable, because then YouTube will show them to more people. And as always, I kind of mention, check out kailives.com. That's my little website. There's a little place where you can buy art from me and watch movies that I've made, and my little universe that I've created that I'm familiar with and I love. But I love it, but that's because I know it. And I'm starting to realize that, like, we love our own little universes so much, and maybe that's the end of it. I don't know, like, it doesn't have to be, I don't have to do anything to change the world. I can just cruise and just do what people do. That's kind of what's happening.